We begin in the studio this morning with General Jones. General, thank you for coming. More bad news from Afghanistan this morning. 8 American troops killed in this latest attack. This as the White House is debating whether to send more troops to Afghanistan. I want to begin by asking you about this meeting that the president had with General McChrystal, our top general in Afghanistan. He met with him in Copenhagen after the general basically shot down the idea of changing our strategy in Afghanistan. 2 questions. First, did the president feel that the general was trying to bring pressure on him in public, and did he tell him not to do that?
Well, Bob, first, thank you very much for having me on, and it's good to be back. Secondly, to answer your question, I wasn't at that meeting, and this was a one-on-one meeting between the 2 of them, and I haven't really talked to the president about that, so I couldn't answer this question except to say that the 2 had a good meeting, and it was a good opportunity for them to get to know each other a little bit better, and I'm sure they exchanged very direct views.
Well, did the general tell the president that he thinks it's a bad idea not to put these extra troops into Afghanistan that he is requesting? Because he says he needs 40,000 troops.
Well, General McChrystal and the entire military chain of command, as well as the Secretary of Defense and the entire national security team is in the process of discussing this very issue. We've had one lengthy meeting already last week with General McChrystal on the screen from Kabul. We will have more this week, 2 more meetings this week. So all of these things are being discussed as they should be against the backdrop of this unfortunate tragedy that we all regret. But it serves to underscore the importance of the moment to make sure that the strategic issues and the strategic decisions that the president will make are fully aired and vetted, and that the options that the president has are also put on the table. And it would be, I think, unfortunate if we let the discussion just be about troop strength. There is a minimum level that you have to have, but there's unfortunately no ceiling to it.
Well, let me just put up on the screen here what exactly the general said last week in London when he was asked if scaling back the force, as Vice President Biden wants to do, was a good idea. Here's what he said. The short answer is no. A strategy that does not leave Afghanistan in a stable position is probably a short-sighted strategy. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty tough bottom line there, it seems to me. For example, do you agree that that would be a short-sighted strategy, John?
Well, I think that I've said before for many years, and I've had about 6 years of involvement in Afghanistan in various functions. I think it would be a mistake to underestimate the importance of other elements of the strategy that were decided on in March. We do have a strategy. What General McChrystal has done is presented his opinion, presenting his opinion of what he thinks his role within that strategy is. Our strategy is a regional strategy. We focus on Afghanistan and also Pakistan. And I think that to not understand the value of the role that the government has to play in Afghanistan, and we have an election that's playing itself out, is a very, very significant aspect of the strategy, and to not fully understand how reconstruction and development play in. Whether you're adopting a counterterrorism strategy or counterinsurgency strategy, there are things you have to do, there are common things that you have to do to be successful in both. So I think this is what we're going to tear apart and look at and consider General McChrystal's input. The president should be presented with options, not just one fait accompli, and we will come up with the right solution, I think.
Well, isn't it going to be difficult, though? Because this is the man that President Obama sent out there.
Correct.
He relieved the general that was in command. He sent the new man out, said, you go out there and tell me what we need to be doing here. And he comes back and says, we need 40,000 troops. Isn't that a hard decision for the president to disagree with? I mean,
well, on that score, the president is just now receiving what the ask is in terms of troops. So that has not been discussed yet. Our process is to examine the strategy, make sure we have that right, and it's Afghanistan for sure, but it's also Pakistan and it's the region, which is why we reshaped ourselves to deal with this issue in that way. There are things going on in Pakistan that are very encouraging. The Pakistani army and the government have done much better since March, when the strategy was announced against the insurgents on their side of the border. The relationship between the United States military and the Pakistani military is a growing one. It's on the ascendancy. We hope that will lead to a campaign against all insurgents on that side of the border. And if that happens, that's a strategic shift that will spill over into Afghanistan. So I would remind, just for the sake of just discussion here, what our goals were: to disrupt, dismantle, and defeat al-Qaeda from being able to operate inside of Afghanistan, returning to Afghanistan, and also in the so-called safe areas in Pakistan.
That prompts a question. Do you believe, I mean, the general conventional wisdom is that if the Taliban comes back in force, if we're not there, then al-Qaeda will come back. Other people are saying, during these discussions at the White House, we're questioning all the assumptions. Do you think it follows that if the Taliban comes back, that al-Qaeda will be back?
Yeah, that's a hypothetical that I just, it just depends on the circumstances. I would prefer to think about the other side of the coin, is how do we make the present government successful? How do we get better rule of law at the local, regional, and national level? How do we marshal the nation-building effort, if you will, the development effort, economic development, so the people of Afghanistan have a better future? By the way, the people of Afghanistan know what life is like under the Taliban. They're not exactly thrilled about that possibility.
Let me just ask you this. Officials in Pakistan and Afghanistan have told us that they are concerned that once again, America is losing our resolve in an important part of the world. Are you concerned that what we consider deliberating, others might see as dithering?
Well, I don't. I think the deliberation is important. We have not only our national deliberation, but we have an international presence that is extremely impressive and important. We are working side by side with NATO, for example, as we evaluate General McChrystal's recommendation. So this is something that the President had said we would always do back in March. He said, after the elections, we will make an assessment. This is exactly what's happening. And no one has suggested that we're about to leave Afghanistan. We are committed to the battle against radical terrorism.
When do you think we'll have a decision? When will the general have a decision? A matter of weeks or months?
I think no. I think in a matter of weeks. So we have time on the President's schedule. He's going to devote an enormous amount of his time to lead us through this. Everyone will be involved. And at the end of the day, the right way to do this is to present the President with a set of options on what he can do. And Afghanistan will be the topic, but it won't be the only topic. It will be Pakistan, it will be the region. And that's the way we should do it.
I have to ask you before you go about Iran. The New York Times reports this morning that the Atomic Energy Agency concludes that Iran has acquired sufficient information to be able to design and produce a workable bomb. I take it we know about this. What is the significance of that? Because 2 years ago, of course, our intelligence reported that Iran had stopped trying to design a nuclear weapon.
Well, I don't think, whether they know how to do it or not is a matter of some conjecture. But what we're watching is what is their intent, and we have been worried about that intent. We now have an Iran that is willing to come to the table. We have 2 more meetings scheduled, one in which they will announce they will allow the inspectors to visit the Qom site, which has been just recently announced, and the other one to discuss methodology by which we can ship their low enriched uranium out of the country. Those 2 things alone move the dial in our direction favorably. And the issue of proliferation is one that really keeps us up at night and should keep us up at night, whether it's North Korea or Iran. And on both fronts, we're seeing some movement in a positive direction.
All right. Well, General, we have to let you go. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.